I just want to start by expressing my gratitude to the Kirkland Arts Center and Jeremy for curating this. I have to acknowledge my desire to be here today came when I asked Jeremy, can I have a showing? I asked for it. I wasn't necessarily invited, but I guess when you find out if you want to really do something, if you ask for it, find out you're there. So that started just last year, and Jeremy came over to my home studio to say, what are you asking to show? What do you do? How does this look? And I got a nice nod. And so that's how I wound up here in this setting, and pointing out that KAC now is growing in the sense of establishing itself as a center for art on the East Side. Sarah, and you just mentioned you had never even come in here.
No.
I've lived here 20 years in the area, and I've walked past and seen some pottery in the window, but we never really came in. So starting to see this establish itself in this manner, and being one of the first in a line of people who will show their art here. And so I feel real privileged to get that, and I get to also be a little bit of a guinea pig for some of the things they want to institute and put together. So it was a very well coordinated collaboration to get it all here. I'm just going to start on the basis of what most people ask of me is, how did you do this? Because I come from a corporate background. I'm a business woman person. Did that 35 years. Transitioned out of the corporate world when I basically aged out of the way business was operating. And some of you know me as a personal trainer. And that was stepping off the corporate world and getting on another lane. Establishing that for a while, and then building my own business off of that. Became a businesswoman, which I'd not tried running that, and I'm 15 years now as a personal trainer. And then COVID came along, and we all got trapped inside, and my cat even died then. Little bitch, excuse me. Decided 17 years of life was enough for her, and I had to put her down. So now I was really alone, no cat, and what was I going to do with myself? And I was cleaning out some closets, and I came across a box of pastels. Now, that thought for a moment of COVID in March of 2020 is not really when this all started. I keep saying that, but that isn't true. When I start to really go back through the times that I was doing other things for my life, some of you are old enough to remember a matchbook cover where they had the little things that draw this inside. Anybody remember those? And I used to do that. I remember I started really digging back, and I went, oh, you used to think that was really cool, and I was able to do it. And then I started doing the other things that, of course, life pulls you into accomplishing. And then it was in about 2000, 2001, my mother became very ill. And I started sketching while she was sick. And it was just she lived in Florida, at the time in Florida. So I thought, I'm remembering now that I picked up again something that soothed me in a time when things were really difficult. I kept going back to ways to express the uncomfortableness, but turning into something a little bit joyous. So I brought a couple of pieces to illustrate how I found out that it didn't all start at COVID. Okay? So let me just take the, could you pass me that one behind you by my mother? Thank you.
I got it. What do you want to look?
I just hold it right here. Appreciate that, thanks. Okay, so this painting is an oil painting done by my mother. And this is probably about 50 years old that this was done. But I've had it in my house, wherever I've lived, time after time, it's always hanging there. So I find this has just kind of gotten into my consciousness. So when I look around and I started doing women's paintings of women, I saw that I was kind of calling up my ancestor in some respect and moving from her into me. But then when you look at some of the women paintings around here, you'll see. Okay? So that one, she also did this one about 50 years ago. I'm talking about the same period of time. So when I talk about when my mother got sick and I started doing something 20 years ago, this is what happened. So I did this 22 years ago. And then when I looked at that, I said, oh my gosh, I must have been painting the woman in the doorway. Something must have decided, because I didn't have this one with me. This was with my parents until she passed away, and then I got it. So in my thing, when my mom was not well, I took that woman out of the doorway and I put her right there. And then when I looked at this color that I selected here, just last year, I did this woman over here who's wearing an orange shirt. So color palettes they just stayed in me, and when I started to do something, my choices seemed to just happen that way. And then when I look at the background here, the way this is here, and then I look at my sardonyx crystal back there, that seems to be the background I decided to pull into that 20 years later. Okay? So I think it started to occur to me that I've always had desires to pull out and create based on what's going on in the period of my life. And then to make it even crazier, my dad is a writer. He wrote a book of his life. This is my mother's painting on the front cover. He's wearing an orange shirt. So there it is again. And the way that he is sitting here with this arm, I somehow decided this was like 2003 or somewhere, then I did that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that I am original necessarily, but I am definitely calling up my background and my ancestors to do it. I wrote on the piece about my mom, her work, and this piece right here that she did, this is one of her largest pieces that she did. And you notice the fine detail, particular shade of color that's in there. This one's 40 by 48. I'll put it back here. And you know, the detail that's in there. And when my mother got sick, what she had was a meningioma in her head that was growing. And as it got fuller and growing, her dexterity and her vision got less acute for fine motor details. And by that time, my parents they had the Jimmy Buffett syndrome, and they moved to the island of St. Croix. They moved off of Long Island, New York, and moved to the Virgin Islands. When they got there, it was all the tropical birds and flowers and colors, and that's when all this kind of stuff, this is me, but that's when my mother started painting in vibrant colors, because her vision and her dexterity and all that had changed, and so her artwork started to, over 30 years, go from detail like this to, and those other pieces are mostly with my family after she passed away. I have the older stuff. So I'm trying to illustrate that this isn't new. It wasn't COVID. COVID just locked me down where I had to slow down, couldn't go anywhere, and then it just flourished off of that. So with my opening reception last couple of weeks ago, a couple showed up that I worked with in aviation in 2001. They came to my opening. So Manny and Ileana walked up and stood next to this piece right here and said to me, "Oh gosh, I still have that piece you gave us 20 years ago." And I was like, I didn't remember. I just didn't even connect. And I'm thinking, yeah, I was doing a few things, but I don't remember any of it. Oh, and we still have it, and it's hanging in my bedroom. It's been hanging there for 20 years. And I said, okay, I confess, I don't know what I did 20 years ago. Could you send me a picture of it? So they took a picture, and this is what they sent me. The colors for the table, the activity, that long ago. So I began to become pretty convinced of the idea that COVID was an invitation for me to fully begin to express what's already inside of me. And in the 4 plus years, the evolution in that period has been wider, greater, and higher and longer than in 20 years ago when I was doing something. So now I can see this ascent of pulling in not only what I was surrounded with artists, musicians, visual artists, and actors, it's just creative people all in my formative years, pulling all that in. And the acceleration in the last 4 years has been stunning for me. So I started on my dining room table during COVID, and then I went from my dining room table to my second bedroom and rearranged a few things. And then my friend over here, Bill, said, "Hey, I got an empty space here in my upstairs. Do you want to move over?" So I packed up everything and moved all of my artwork into his extra bedroom. And then he got busy with a new life, and I moved out of his bedroom and back home. Excuse me, allergies with the dog was. So I came back, but this time when I came back, I decided to completely redo my entire condo. So then my living room and dining room, everything that used to be a gym 15 years ago, well, no, 2019, I think I changed that. So now my home is my workspace, gallery, studio. And now I'm still training with my practice now is much more boutique in terms of my time and selection of people that I work with, giving me the space and time to continue to grow my collection. I've been at Onyx Fine Art in Seattle since the 4 years I started. They're a nonprofit gallery in Pacific Place in Seattle. And they showcase and put forward the work done by African American artists in the Northwest that are underrepresented in galleries and different places. So there's hundreds of different artists around from Alaska to Oregon that bring their pieces there. So I've sold some pieces at Onyx, and they've seen me put different things in from different times. And when they came here for my opening here, the board director and his wife and other members of the board, they attended the opening, and when Connie walked in, and Connie just said, "Brilliant." That one word took everything that I've been doing and put it right to my heart, where it now is. And Ernie said, "You now have a body of work, you have a collection." So this is what I am. So that's the story of how I got here, and it's not recent. It seems to be recent because it's like Another friend of mine says, gradually, then suddenly. That statement, and we all kind of live through some periods in our time where things are gradually, and then bam, well, this is what this is. This is gradually, then suddenly. So that's the story of how I got here. Anybody want to ask any questions about the word, me, or anything?
What was your father's cake about?
The title of the book is The Hip Recollections of a Senior Bronx Homeboy. And what this is growing up in the time of the Depressions and the wars, what it was like living in the Bronx, New York as this guy. And he created a character called Darby Hicks. This is his alter ego guy. And he calls it a 90-minute read of a lifetime. And it's also not for the squeamish, he says, because it's pretty raw. So, that's what that is.
So Valerie, when you're doing like the pieces behind you, how do you determine you're done?
How do I determine?
That the piece is finished?
Oh, very good question. Leave it to Sarah.
You have to determine it, yeah.
Usually when I run out of paint.
Oh, is it? Okay.
No, there comes a point where the saturation is, to a certain point. And for me, when I know it's done is when I'm afraid of making a mistake. Because nothing about this is intentional. So when I think I'm about to make a mistake, it's because I'm starting to think about something and I'm about to wreck it in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I'm done.
Yeah, that's right. Good answer.
So when we were talking, Valerie, you mentioned a couple of things to me that I was wondering if you might expand upon a little bit, which is kind of like your connection with the crystals, the divine femininity that you brought up, sacred geometry, all those kind of more mystical properties of your work.
Sure, what makes this all connect? So the crystals, and let's see, what do I have on me today? This is rhodochrosite, which is also in the necklace here. And, well, the property of this particular one, it opens the heart chakra. When people talk about what are the spiritual aspects of your crystals and how do they resonate, this one here particularly will open up your heart chakra, bring about compassion and empathy. So I like to carry that around with me or wear that so that when I'm out and about, I know that's what I'm open to. My heart is open and I'm giving my heart. What happened with the crystals is I went to Earthlight, and I have some of her cards. Down at the marina here, there's a crystal and gem store. Right down in the back by the...
Yeah, it's right by your champagne place.
Yeah, by the champagne place.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went in there because I was collecting crystals in the shape of a heart, and I just thought it was kind of cool. But as I got in there and I started talking to Rachel, she began to really elaborate on what the crystals meant when I was holding them, how is it bringing a particular interest into my life, and when she talked about, and I'll pull up one of there's some live crystals here. The sacred geometry that is in the crystals shows up by certain dectratons, there are lines in there, and that these are related to the matrix, if you will, and the way that the universe operates and balances itself in the form of harmony. As it relates to the feminine principle, the aspects of the feminine principle is related to balance, harmony, and nurturing. So when those qualities are put together, which is like what I did with the women, is like the black sardonyx that is right there. We're situating that next to this woman here. The properties in the sardonyx are about protection, boundaries. When you're working with sardonyx, it's that way of keeping your surroundings safe and secure and powerful and drawing boundaries. The woman next to her that I created is in a particular posture and of a particular age and size, which I want to give a little shout out to the curvy women, put a little color on her as an African American, and the gray hair. So her being there was this idea that her posture and the way that she's holding herself says she has drawn a line in the sand. She is really clear about who she is, not making any effort or attempt to make herself thinner, make her hair darker, change the color of her skin. So I named this one, I Can and I Will Watch Me. So that gives the energy of that one. And then having her sit between the carnelian there, and carnelians can come up either deeper red or orange in terms of their, where they're mined and pulled out and cleaned up. And this one is about creativity and joy. So when you're using a carnelia, so I thought putting her between the two was saying, yeah, I have my boundaries, I'm strong, and this is where I'm drawing a line in the sand, and here's my creativity and joy, and I walk right through it. So each one of these crystals that are buttressed by women have that story. They rhodonite, garnet, purple one right there. That is about ensuring love and relationships and companionship. Brides often carry these when they go into wedding situations. The woman next to her is starting now. That's the name of her, which is saying, I am powerful, and that's with all the splash that goes behind her. The turquoise there is about calming and being really relaxed. The woman next to her is maybe later called out that way, that she is calm, introspective, kind of waiting it out. The red jasper next to that one is about being grounded. It's a grounding stone. And the way that I did the red jasper to keep it flat and unvarnished, like the turquoise is by nature a stone that is very brilliant, very bright, and you want to, so it's high gloss, shellacked up. The red jasper is not at all that way, it is because it is about grounding. So it's almost like a dirtier stone. And that's why I drew the lines around it to really hold it to the canvas. And so that's what happened there. And then it can go on. The moss agate, I'm going to skip over to the moss agate. The moss agate is one that talks about seeing the forest for the trees. The whole thing about this is about going deep into nature, finding that quality and that space that is in harmony with nature. And a virtual tour is being created which will narrate all of these pieces and draw the lines through them in the story. So when that's published and out, you'll be able to hear some of what I'm saying as it relates to each piece. So, but I don't want to take all your time. So jumping over here, I did these three here to illustrate the sacred geometry, which has that quality of having patience, exactitudes. These were unnerving and scary to do. This is not. This is emotionally liberating, freeing, go for it. This is taped and glued, and every time I remove something, the fear of it smearing and all that kind of, and you wreck it. So this is very unnerving, but it's a lesson in a technique that I actually love to do because I have to focus, totally focus in order to establish that. And then we put that between these liberating and freeing pieces to just demonstrate that there's a harmony and a balance and all of that. You can be as patient and exacting and nerve-wracking as this, as liberating and freeing as that. Because I never knew where that was going to go. This is no design. It's just happening. So that's how those happen, and the same thing with these. And she goes back to, well, Jeremy likes when he looked at this one and decided to put it at this spot, that this one seems to encompass all of the different ways I'd like to work. It's got the geometry in there, it's got the woman in there, it's got that whole sense and feeling. So I do like her a lot. I like having put those types of colors all in vibrant. And then it carried right over into this. So that's What do you think? What do you say? So here's, I use this crystal book to reference. Rachel is not able to be here today. She is at the store. But I encourage anyone who's interested in really knowing the crystal stories. I have some of her cards up here. And the crystals, this book is wonderful, and I use it as a reference piece. Most of these crystals that I've done come from a book called by Judy Hall, because they're so vibrant. So I'm inspired by those. So like if I'm doing a moss agate, the one that's in the book, this doesn't look like that, but it's the one that got me here. So it's always an interpretation. So when people ask about, oh, I like, the reason, okay, carrying a crystal on you, wearing it, having it be part of you, you're walking around with you. When it's hanging on your wall in your home, it is 100% 24/7 radiating into your experience and into your life. So some people have asked about commissions for crystals, because they say, oh, a particular crystal is my gemstone or my whatever that I love, and would you abstract it, create that. So I do that for people.
What's your favorite crystal? What's your favorite?
My favorite, right now it is the rhodochrosite, because I like it for the heart chakra, and I do have one that I did that's at home. The other one that I like is rose quartz. Everybody loves rose quartz.
Yeah, rose quartz representing.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, and I have rose quartz at home, because now when I took these hang in my home. When I took all these down, it was like an echo in my house. I was like, oh geez, my walls are all empty. So a lot of the pieces that I started with were, against the wall or behind the door or something, and I've hung them all back up to replace these. So I do have my sapphire and amber, rhodochrosite, the rose quartz, and the argyrite. I got about 6 of them that are home up on the wall. And because they're there, I know that I'm sitting in a container of energy that is always just vibrating. So I'll always do crystals, and I'm thinking like, where do you go from here? If this is a collection, then what? I'll always do crystals. I am bound to women. I know that I am. I got that from my mother. She always loved doing people. She called it archetypes. Basically, somebody would look and say, gee, that looks like my sister Mary, or that was like this one. She did this one, and my father put it in his book. This was everyone's, Uncle Joe, Uncle Sam, Uncle Paul, etc., etc., etc. So when I do women, I like a woman to look at it and say, oh my gosh, that reminds me of my cousin, or gee, that looks like my so-and-so. And it's not a portrait of anybody. I've taken a magazine, and I look through and I see, oh, I love the look of that woman's face, and I can copy it. And then I render it, and then it becomes mine after that. But I don't use live people. I don't know how to do that. I'm not trained at all. I don't know if I could sit down and like sketch you and have it be you. It'll be somebody that resembles you, but it won't be you. So I'll do the women, and I'll always stick with geometry. I love the clean, crisp idea of it, and I like what it requires for me as a personality type, that I can slow down enough to be what that is to me as close as perfect as you can get in life, because I am not perfect, but I can demonstrate it through that. Okay, so.
Exhale. I said exhale now.
So I think what you see is what you'll continue to see. I'll probably move on, as I was talking with Jeremy, to another color palette. I still love bright. Again, I think I get that from my mom. I'll still want to do, I don't see myself muted, and anything I've done has never been quiet or muted. Maybe that Danby bright because it's naturally meant to be clear and looking through. So, but let me just show you something real quick, and then I'm gonna let you go when it comes to them. So a real crystal, like this moss agate, you could start to appreciate what really goes on inside of one.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, wow.
So, inside of the moss agate. So when you get up onto the one that I've done up there, you'll start to see all of those fractures.
Do you put the light behind it when you're painting it?
No, mostly I start a piece with a photograph of the crystal, which there are thousands of different ways that a moss agate could look, right? So eventually I'll come upon one and say, oh, I like that one, that has the greens or the yellows or something that I like about it, and I'll start painting it with, like, laying down a base for it, and then I go down and I see Rachel, and I say, I'm looking for a moss agate. I started something, and then there's a whole pile of them there, and I'll find one that says, oh, I like that one, and then I bring that in, and then I start using it, but I don't start with this.
You talked about the way that the crystals complement your women pictures, but you did them at different times, didn't you?
Yes, yes, yes. I think the woman was first. Yeah, I did that woman in the teal dress, and then I did the carnelian after that. And interesting, when I had done my previous ones that I have in all like my rose quartz, it's on a black background, like the three that are across the wall here. They have a black background. And when I did the carnelian that you see there, I had already done that woman, and I wanted more color to complement her. That's what came up with the blue and the yellow, the way that I did the two. And that was to bring more of the geometry into it, and also give it a little bit of a pop kind of a feature on it. And then when I did the geometry on the red jasper over there, that was about anchoring it because it's a stone that says we're grounded. So I didn't want it floating there. And so those pieces are what pull it onto the canvas. So that was the choice to do that. Yeah.
Really good.
The lines in the painting, is that just?
That is a graphite stick of something that was in probably some of my old boxes of pastels or something. Because when it comes to equipment, well, let me just answer that. When it comes to equipment and things, I've got kitchen tools, paint tools, all kinds of different things to create these different things. And that was a graphite stick or something. And that came on the canvas before any paint. Yeah, it's not before, I mean, it's before, not after that I did that. The same thing with the lines that go up the side and down. This right here, I think it's kind of fun to talk about how to make things happen.
Yeah.
I don't have any secrets. It's not like grandma's recipe where you're not going to tell anybody so they don't make the thing.
Yeah.
This is a latex, Rust-Oleum latex enamel paint.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and it's in a condiment squeeze bottle.
Yeah.
You can squeeze out. Okay, that right there is to like maybe something down here would be 4 different colors. Like I would take paint, put a little splotch of red, then put a splotch of blue on top of it, and maybe a little medium of some kind to make it spread on top of it. So I got a little mountain of colors, and then I took my hairdryer and hit it, and it's like, wow, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because of the particular medium that I used was the gloss, that's why it's all shiny. There's no shellac on this. This is all the way the paint turned. Because it's different types of paint. There's some acrylic, heavy body, some flow body, and stuff like that. And it just, and that's when you decide you can't be committed to the outcome. You just have to let it go. And that's what happened. So,
I'm curious, did you do like 15 of those and this is your favorite, or did you do
I just
more?
did two. I did this one and then the one on the end.
Yeah.
The one in the middle, although resembling somewhat of that, this is done with a palette knife. This one in the center, that is not splash and dash thing. That one is with a palette knife.
So did you layer the paints up?
Yeah, it took a long time. This one took a long time, a longer time. Not that this was fast and easy, but you can see by what I did. If I made bigger circles and bigger things, I could do a whole thing. But these were smaller, about the size of maybe a $50, and would grow. That one took a while to get that many colors on there with a palette knife. This one here, on the end, that one is with makeup wedges, sponges. So I was looking for, the brush wasn't working for me somehow. So I said, what would happen if I smear it with something else? So as I say, I'm untrained, I don't have any schooling. People think if you go to school and you learn a technique, you're going to manufacture 15 pieces that all look the same, because that's the technique you may have learned. I just innovate, so I have no schooling that says you're only going to do this because that's what you learn to do. I keep trying to figure out new ways to do things. Eventually, as what you noticed when I got this all together, it still looked like the same person doing it. I have pieces at home that people will say, who did that one? And what was the person that did this one? But they don't have anything that denotes that this is coming out of my spirit or my way. These all, on the other hand, start to demonstrate that. Because the same thing with the moss agate, there's a lot of sponge work done in that and not much brush work. So, that's what you get. All right, well, I don't know what time it is, and I don't want to keep it.
It's 12:45, so you guys want to come and have a piece of cake?
Please have a piece of cake.
That's a cake, by the way.
Yeah,
That
it
is
is
a
a
cake.
cake.
Yeah. It's more like the crystal, yeah.
That's a crystal, but it's a
Look
cake.
at it,
Look
yeah.
at that cake, it's gorgeous.
That's Jeremy.
What?
Flower Lane Bake Shop.
Flower Lane Bake Shop.
Where's that at?
It's in Madison Valley.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Where is it?
Are you gonna cut
Madison
it?
Valley.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
cut it because there may be dowels and things in there. So while you're eating, be careful, there may be, but I'm gonna try my
You
best.
should look at it
I
before
just
they
followed
cut
the
it,
cut,
yeah.
the cut instructions.
Valerie, I can't stop looking at your mom.
Oh,
I can't stop looking at your mom.
And this one, yes.